Game of Thrones Season 4, Episode 6, The Laws of Gods and Men. I'm Beau Oliver Blue, and I'm here with the Monkey Man, my friend.
Was that like
Little 90s Will Smith rap.
Yeah, I thought you were going boy band at first, but I didn't really know where.
I think we could be a boy band.
I don't think you even knew where you were taking that.
No, that kind of just sprung up naturally. I'm in a good mood, Thanksgiving. I'm a big Thanksgiving guy.
Yeah?
Favorite time of the year.
Probably the best holiday.
I make an argument for Christmas.
But Christmas, you gotta get all the gifts. It's a hassle.
Oh, I don't do gifts.
Thanksgiving, you just show up and there's dinner, and you just get drunk and watch football.
That is a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving might be number one. Holy shit.
Yeah.
You've convinced me.
That's what I do.
The fact that there's a bank in a high fantasy series. There's a bank, and they play a major role in how the show operates, and how the characters within the show operate. There's a bank.
Imagine that was like you go to Chase, and that's what it's like. Just three people come out and just sit there and judge you.
Just waiting to get your credit card approved. I wish I had Davos there and maybe have better credit.
Yeah.
He's in his prime. He's making Game of Thrones reviews.
That's his second job. He just goes around trying to helping people get loans at banks.
Instead of Better Call Davos, it's just those credit advertisements you hear on the radio.
Hi, I'm Davos.
Hi, I'm Davos Seaworth. Used to be a smuggler.
The only thing I'm smuggling is the money from the bank vault into your pockets.
And it's the first time we see Bravos in the show, right? It's our first voyage into Bravos.
First time we see the Titan, and he has the broken sword. That thing's massive, man. That's like, You enter like New York City, you see the Statue of Liberty, you see the buildings, but that might top it. You're setting the tone, like, yeah, this is Bravos.
That's something that everybody in Bravos has never been to the Titan of Bravos, but if you visit there, you're like, oh, we got to go see the Titan of Bravos.
Yeah.
And all the Bravosi are like, it's not that good. The lines are really long.
Yeah.
But yeah, the CGI looks great, and it's one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful cities in Essos. And the way that they make Stannis wait, it's a perfect negotiating tactic. That they know that they're the ones who have to be impressed by Stannis, and they're at the lowest point probably in the show.
Yeah, they really have nothing at this point. I mean, their army got decimated at the Blackwater, their ships, their morale is low. It's kind of like a last-ditch effort.
Yeah, and Davos is trying to cheer Stannis up by telling him a smuggling story, and the face that Stannis gives him is like, know your target audience. This is not going to cheer me up.
It never would have at any point of Stannis' life. So why do you think it's going to work now, Davos?
Right. But the way that they walk out the first time I saw this, my first thought was, oh, Mycroft Holmes. Yeah. He does have a high position. And Mark Gatiss, who is an actor that he's good, but I don't think he was right for this role. I think he's cooking it a little bit too much. The role of Tycho Nestoris.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
It's a little test.
Yeah.
I don't even try.
With his name? Yeah.
Same thing with
Daenerys' husband.
Yeah.
I was literally sounding it out when Daenerys nailed it. So.
Oh, she said it. No, she did the fast mumble.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Bury your pops. This is a great conversation that they have too, where they're discussing the laws of Westeros versus how they work their books in Bravos. That Stannis is over here making the claim that he's saying that Tommen Baratheon, Joffrey Baratheon, they're bastards born of incest, and that means that his blood gives him a right to the Iron Throne and also to the money of the Iron Bank. But the Iron Bank, this is why in high fantasy it's so funny that there's a bank here telling them that we operate based on numbers, that we're making calculations, and we're investing in something that could yield us the best results.
Well, it begs the question, is analytics ruining Westeros? But I always like to hear like Westerosi, like the events that have happened from foreigners, and we see it the more we get into like Essos and stuff like that. But he's describing what he's heard about the War of the Five Kings, and basically, that's not the story that Tywin tells me. Like, there's just so many different stories and narratives going around. So, like when you see Arya watching that play about the War of the Five Kings later on in season 6, I believe, it's just everyone has these different interpretations, and we're like, no, that's not true. We've seen it, we know. But it's just, controlling the narrative and getting it out there. And pretty much people will believe whatever helps them out the most. So whatever narrative works for you, you're going to hang on to that, even if it's not the truth.
Right. They're more inclined to believe Tywin Lannister because, like they say about their numbers, that they're more plain, they're less open to interpretation. And that's the thing with the laws in Westeros and the books and the histories, that everything is ambiguous, history being written by the victors. But right now, Davos, he makes the point that when Tywin dies, and Tywin is an older man in Westeros, who takes control of the house? It's Jaime Lannister, who's a Kingsguard. He can't even further the family line. Tyrion Lannister is on trial right now. He's going to be executed. And then you have the Mad Queen, Cersei Lannister. It's a convincing argument to at least not necessarily fully back Stannis, but to make sure that you're hedging your bets. That you're betting on both horses right now.
I was listening to it again. I'm like trying to put myself in their position. There's nothing really there that kind of would be like, yeah, you know what? That makes sense. I'm going to throw all the numbers out.
I wonder how much they really gave him, though. Probably enough for Stannis to at least compete.
Yeah.
But not so much where the Iron Bank is going to be sweating about it.
It's kind of been like a slow quarter, so.
Yeah, they're like, we'll throw Shark Tank, basically. Westerosi Shark Tank.
I'll give you 10,000 dragons for 20% in your army.
Mark Cuban walks in. Now, hold up there a second. Davos uses this investment to convince Salador Saan to sail with him once again. I think Deadpool might have stole this joke from him.
I wrote the same fucking thing.
And
it's probably a joke before this too, but
yeah, it goes back centuries.
Yeah,
so
I'm giving it to Salador.
You may be wondering why the red suit. Well, that's so bad guys can't see me bleed. This guy's got the right idea. He wore the brown pants.
Talk about sailing in ships. At the end of season 3, we saw Yara going to save Theon. And just 6 episodes later into season 4, she's still sailing. So I don't know if this is happening in real time or if this is just an event that occurred earlier in the timeline.
Currents?
Yeah.
You know, the waves.
The waves, currents.
The moon.
I kept calling her Asha in my notes, and I'm like, Yara, not Asha. This is where Alfie Allen really starts to deliver the performance of somebody who's just become this person who has completely lost his original personality, and it's fascinating how his mind has just gone completely blank, and he's this docile slave creature, almost. And Yara just can't believe it when she finds him.
He thinks he's being tricked at first. This guy's been through the ringer. Ramsay probably tormented him in every single way possible, where he probably has had something like this where he had a chance to be free and he just tricked him and just fucking tortured him again. So he's conditioned now, basically, don't do anything without Ramsay.
Right, yeah, the way that he's been conditioned. Like you said, he truly has been through the ringer.
Pavlov's Reek.
The one guy that helps them find where Reek is kind of looks like Pip. It's like, what the hell is Pip doing at the Dreadfort?
I don't like how she killed him. She's just working, you know?
Yeah, he seemed like he was ready to help. He was willing.
Yeah, you know, got to feed the family somehow. It wasn't my fault I work at the Dreadfort.
And then Ramsay shows up, and he just looks like such a lunatic. And the fact that he doesn't have armor makes no sense, but he still looks like a badass.
I wrote snack.
Yeah, he's bulking up, Ramsay. Got any tips?
Yeah.
Any tips?
You know, he was getting busy with Miranda. He had no time to put armor on.
That is true.
These things happen quick.
I'm surprised he wasn't using Miranda as a meat shield. Just holding her up and ducking and dodging. Shout out to Tony. But this is a great battle. It's fun to see these two clans going at each other here.
This is turning into a lovely evening.
And then Ramsay, that look on his face when he unleashes the dogs. How fast can you run with your big balls? It's just the face of pure wickedness. Just loving absolutely every second of this.
Yeah, he wasn't scared for a second. It's like, well, this turned into an eventful evening. It's like, it's the first thing he thought of, like, once he heard, we have,
Intruders?
Intruders.
Really?
Hell yeah.
Like you said about Theon, that he's unable to go with Yara. He bites her, he attacks her, and he has to stay as a caged animal. I guess his arc it's always been really interesting to me, but at this point, we talked about how Stannis and Davos are at their lowest point. This is probably the lowest point for Theon.
Yeah, to say the least. He's definitely in a bad space. I mean, even when Ramsay tries to reward him, kind of in the most Ramsay way, like giving him a bath, he's still like, he won't make eye contact, he's shying away, he's just broken, he's a shell of a person.
Oddly seductive. I'm not going to say that I synced up Barry White, never going to give you up to this, but it works perfectly.
I think he likes Reek.
I think at this point he's like a little puppy. You know, he's like my little Reek.
So weird.
It is very weird. Well, he asked him, he was like, do you love me? I love you. Do you love me? Reek was like, of course, my lord. But this is, once again, he's gotten him so low, he's beaten him down so much that he's able to convince him to play a part of a character that is seemingly dead, Theon Greyjoy. That's got to mess with Reek's mind even more. I don't know why I'm calling him Reek.
I called him Reek too in my notes.
It's convincing.
He's Reek now.
Yeah, he's Reek. He's Reek now. It's the point of view chapter says Reek. He's Reek.
Yes.
And Yara gives up on him. Yara says, my brother is dead, and hopefully this is the last we see of her. Boy, wouldn't that have been nice? Now, this has to be one of the most terrifying shots of the show. Top 5, if you will. When Drogon rises up and attacks the goat herder. That still scares me every time I see it, and I know it's coming.
Imagine being that kid, man. He's just, thinking every normal day.
You know what this reminds me
Taking the goats
of?
out for a walk.
When you're a kid and you're in the pool and you think that a shark is under you, even though it's so irrational. You ever had that feeling when you were a kid?
No.
Well, I guess you didn't have a pool.
What
Pleb.
I had a pool. I just wasn't dumb enough to think there's a shark in it.
All right. Well, you didn't have an imagination.
That's true.
Yeah, that.
I'll give you that one.
But the
Probably
way
because my parents got divorced when I was really young. Kind of ruined my childhood, but yeah.
I thought they were killed by poachers. They even mention it later in the episode that Cersei says Daenerys has 3 baby dragons. That's a baby. What the fuck are they going to look like in their teenage years?
Well, we kind of saw it in season 7.
Right.
Then we see the goat herder come to Daenerys with the goat bones. They're all charred up, and he's kind of shaken up a little, but Daenerys does receive him with kindness. And it's nice to see, this new queen coming to town. You don't really know who she is, and she's pretty nice.
Right, it's got to be intimidating on all fronts that you're meeting the person who just took over your city. You were just attacked by her giant dragon, even though it's still a baby. And Daenerys, when Barristan and Jorah look at her when she agrees to pay him 3 times over, they're seeing that she does have that gentle heart, that kindness, that she's able to reciprocate the respect that this goat herder has shown her by giving him back something in the material, which is unlike many leaders in Westeros, giving him not justice in a way, but repaying him.
3 times.
Yeah.
It's a come up. Where I'm from.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's moving to Bravos.
Yeah.
It's like, finally, I'm getting out of Marine. And then she's received by Hisdar Zolarak.
Okay.
Yeah.
I trust you.
Okay. Thank you. Getting the Jeopardy points there. And this is where we talked about, too, in previous episodes, the complexity of ruling, where she receives the man and he says, my father was a very well-respected citizen of Marine. He oversaw the renovation of some of Marine's greatest artifacts, including this temple that you're now staying in. And Daenerys is thinking to herself, oh, I'd be honored to meet him. It's like, yeah, you met him because you crucified him. The look of shock on her face, the way that she changes from appreciative and happy to receive this man to that look of terror. This isn't conquering. This is something completely different. Ruling and conquering are 2 different things.
She kind of goes back, you kind of see that in her face where she's kind of shocked at first. Then she goes back well, what about all the children that were hung on our journey here, and your father was one of the masters, and they kind of have a back and forth where he says that, he opposed this, and she kind of really doesn't care. So it's kind of like she puts it all on all of the masters regardless of how much input they had. I don't know, you can kind of agree with both here, because if he was trying to help, then it's kind of like maybe a little bit of a rash decision. Maybe she should have listened to Barristan, but I mean, taking over a place and seeing all those horrors on your way there, it's kind of understandable for her to do that.
Right, and this is a character that we learn that he is very obsessed with the traditions of Marine when he talks about the fighting pits, and he's kind of like Tywin Lannister in that the family name lives on, we don't. So that's something that we need to honor. But he does seem like a man who respected and loved his father, and his father seemed like a good man, and maybe he could have done more. Maybe he could have done more years ago to fight against having slaves in Marine so that it never came to this point.
Or his father could have been like the biggest scumbag, but since he's dead already, he's like, got a quick spin zone. It's
yeah, he does seem like a slick talker.
Yeah, gotta be quick on his feet. Like, oh no, my dad is like the best dad ever. Your dad sucks from what I hear. So
yeah, I've heard.
Explain that.
I think I got a better dad.
Yeah, my dad could beat up your dad.
Well, I guess it's a point of maybe he's trying to feel Daenerys out, but he's kind of just fighting for the right to bury his father. So it's not like he's challenging her power. I guess in a way he is, but it seems like a very personal thing for him to want.
Yeah, that makes sense. And she does grant him to have funeral, right?
But it changes her mood instantly, because with the other guy, she was so happy to receive all of her guests and her citizens, and now she learns that there's 200 people waiting, 212, and she's like, oh, can I tag somebody in? And I mentioned before that they discussed Daenerys in the small council meeting, and here we see that meeting, and it's so great to see Oberyn when Tywin walks in the room, and Oberyn just stays sitting. He's swaggering. He doesn't care.
Much like Tyrion, when everyone else is trying to appease Tywin, Tyrion really doesn't care. It's kind of the same thing with Oberyn, but his is more, well, probably not. I was going to say more personal, but they both have their own reasonable gripes with Tywin, so they're not going to be doing every little thing to get his attention, even though Tywin probably could give 2 shits.
Right, I think so. I think they know at this point that they're probably the 2 smartest people in the room, and they're the people that command the most respect. Yeah, they're kind of running down all the events of the day that Sandor Clegane has been found in the Riverlands, and Varys' little birds are really good.
Yeah.
Got that intel of fuck the king was uttered.
Very detail-oriented. They know their shit.
The big update here is Daenerys and what she's doing in Marine and how they're going to deal with her.
Yeah, and Pycelle brings up that, didn't you have Jorah spying for him? And that kind of alludes to, I think Tywin asks for like a piece of parchment or whatever, and that's kind of like the letter he sends to disrupt their camp over in Marine. Like I said, like before with the Iron Bank, like their stories of Westeros, they kind of have their own interpretations and their own stories and what they're hearing from Marine and Daenerys. How Cersei thinks they're baby dragons when we obviously just seen how big these motherfuckers just got, and just the different dynamic. Oh, they have Jorah and Barristan now. How they're getting this news maybe a little bit later that we've known for a while now. That's kind of like a game of telephone. It's kind of been through the ringer, and when it gets to them, it's kind of a little distorted. I kind of like things like that. It's fun.
Right, and they're all doubting the power of the dragons because it is an eyewitness account on how big they actually are. It's just rumors. But Tywin makes the point that dragons haven't won wars in hundreds of years, but armies do. They talk about how Daenerys has commanding an army of 8,000 Unsullied. And Oberyn, that's why it was wise to put him on the small council, because he gives them the information that the Unsullied are very capable fighters on the open field. Good at fighting, not so good at lovemaking, I think he says.
Not wrong, but
Grey Worm's got something to say about that.
it's kind of like Tywin's kind of being a little naive here, right?
Yeah, I think so in a way. I think...
The dragons have been extinct for a while. There was no need. Targaryens won with dragons and remained in power until Robert's Rebellion.
I think maybe at this point he's hoping that Daenerys is going to stay in Marine, that she's really just never going to turn her sights to Westeros. And by all accounts, the last dragon skulls that Tywin saw, the most recent dragon skulls, were the size of cats.
Yeah.
So we know that things, like you said, it's a game of telephone, things are exaggerated. Oh, these dragons are monsters. Maybe they're just like big dogs. So it's tough to tell. That's why he says, can you get your little birds into Marine? And the way that he comes up with that plan in an instant to send the pardon for Ser Jorah, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant move.
I would have loved to see how Tywin would have dealt with Dany, like on a doorstep,
Yes.
like when she's coming with the dragons.
I always think about that too. I mean, the way that his arc ends, it's a perfect ending. Obviously, it serves both characters, both he and Tyrion. I would have loved to see Tywin alive, dealing with Daenerys and dealing with the White Walkers. Tywin staring down the Night King.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
Okay. And then it changes to a scene where we have Varys and Oberyn in the throne room. And this is a scene that everybody always goes back to when we speculate about Varys' true motivations. And I wonder if the show was planning to do something else with Varys at this point in time. Either way, it's a great scene between these two characters, because I think we take for granted how charismatic Varys is.
Yeah, I mean, the whole scene, it could be just him messing with Oberyn a little, like him looking at the throne, or it could have been a setup for a potential young Griff storyline. Who knows, but it is a great scene. Every time Varys is in front of the Iron Throne, you know it's about to be a good scene.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I do love how Oberyn refers to him as Lord Varys, and Varys says, I'm not a lord. And Oberyn says, and still everybody calls you that. And Varys kind of gives his little Kanye shrug. It's the shadow of power, the way that Varys has built his reputation. It was the same thing with Raz in season 2, that everybody respects this man because he is a spider and he's got his fucking spider legs and everything. But they get into Varys' motivations, and he talks about how temptation and desire can ruin any man. And we see that especially in the history of Westeros. How many stories do we go back with the Targaryen dynasty where a reign was ruined because a king lusted over the wrong woman?
Look at fucking Rob.
Yeah, Rob, Tywin and the Mad King. How many relationships? Robert Baratheon.
Yeah.
With Lyanna and Rhaegar. That's so many times that love is the death of duty,
That's
as
why
Maester Aemon says.
That's why I don't allow myself to fall in love.
And when people talk about Oberyn being their favorite character, you just have to give so much credit to Pedro Pascal, the way he plays him with such a smooth charisma. He's so charming. And in this scene, you see how intelligent he is, that he's able to deduce where Varys is from just by hearing his accent. And Varys says, oh, I suppress my accent. And Oberyn's like, yeah, I have an ear for that too. So Oberyn is he's a character that I want to see a prequel series about. I want to see the adventures of the Red Viper, because in even small scenes like this, he's the most interesting man in Westeros. And I mentioned in the last episode too that I think Littlefinger could be considered asexual as well.
Yeah, especially like Oberyn. He probably finds that so strange. It's like, wow, I love everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that glance to the Iron Throne. It was kind of like a safety blanket. If we're going to include young Griff, then let's have this scene here. And if not, he's still...
You never know what he's doing.
Yeah. And then we have Jaime escorting Tyrion to the throne room. And it's funny that they bring the handcuffs, and Tyrion's like, what am I going to make my grand escape right here? Gotta cuff him. He's slippery.
Father's orders.
Father's orders, yeah. And every time I see him walking into the Red Keep, walking up to the Iron Throne, I always think of that clip from the bloopers for season 4, where he's kind of dancing.
Yeah.
And Jaime's escorting him.
I heard they got really mad on the set.
Really? Because
Yeah.
they kept fucking it up.
Well, I think there was like a long day, and they had to deal with that bullshit.
And it's emotional to see Tyrion looking up at his nephew, somebody that he always loved, that they always had a relationship together. Tommen respected Tyrion as if he was his own father. Probably was the most prominent father figure he had in his life. And he has to recuse himself from this trial. And you could see that it hurts Tommen to see his uncle in this position, and vice versa.
Yeah, he really doesn't know what's going on to the full extent, and he doesn't even really look at Tyrion. Even when he passes by him, he kind of keeps his head down and scurries off. Yeah, because looking back, like season 2 especially, where they always had they never really dived too much into it, but little moments they did have together, it seemed like, they liked each other.
Yeah, it goes back to that scene in season 1 when it's episode 2 where he comes to breakfast. And the opening remarks of this trial are so funny. Tyrion is still so clever when he asks him, "Did you kill King Joffrey?" He says, "No."
How would you say he died then?
Choked on his pigeon pie.
So you would blame the bakers?
All the pigeons, just leave me out of it.
He resorts back to that Tyrion kind of wit, even in a situation like this with your father basically accusing you of murdering your nephew. He still goes back to joking around, and we kind of see that in that trial in season 1 where he's not really taking it seriously, even though there's so many implications and his life is at stake. He can't help himself.
Right, and I think at this point too, his wit and humor, he knows that he's dead, that he's going to be executed no matter what he says, no matter what he does. So the mini arc that he has in this episode where it just kind of keeps building and building until he loses his temper at the end. And then we get into all the people that are testifying against him. And I think what's so genius about all the testimony here is that it's all true. Everything that they say really happened, but the way that they can kind of paint it to where Tyrion was plotting against the king, that they're able to ground every story that they tell in reality. And that's what makes it so convincing.
Yeah, no, I noticed that too. No one's really lying.
Right.
Even Varys, I think, is the most apparent one, because up until this point, you think Varys is on Tyrion's side, and all he does is tell the truth. And it's kind of like, oh, Varys, you kind of turned your back on Tyrion. But in Varys' position, he needs to, he's always looking out for himself. He knows how to play the game and what he needs to do to survive. So
big fish eat little fish. He keeps paddling.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing here.
But he doesn't lie. So it's not, you can't really be mad at him.
It's almost like the season
perjury,
finale of perjury, being held in contempt of court.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the season finale of Seinfeld, where everybody's just bringing back these funny things that Tyrion once did. Sir Merentram when he's abusing Sansa. You have Pycelle when he was thrown into the Black Cells for betraying Tyrion. Like we said, that these things all happened, but it's the matter of perception. When you're sitting in the audience and you already perceive Tyrion as this monster, you're going to take this as this guy's just a terrible person, especially the Cersei testimony.
Tyrion's a bad cross-examiner. Never really asks the right questions to help prove him innocence. Hey, it could be grounds for a mistrial, right?
And I think maybe with Tyrion and Varys, when he asks him, "Have you forgotten that I was the one who saved this city?" that it could be a little bit of foreshadowing to Varys' decision, even though he was threatened by Jaime, to save Tyrion, to save his life.
It's a weird question, too. What does that do for him? It's kind of like just a moment between them rather than the larger case at hand. It's not like...
Well, there's no winning for Tyrion.
Yeah.
So I think it's, once again, it's, like you said perfectly, it's a moment between them. And Pycelle talks about how his shop was plundered and they took all the poison, and the poison used was the strangler and even the necklace that Ser Dantos was wearing. Once again, you have hard evidence. You have a smoking gun here. And Marjorie, when you get those little shots of her knowing the truth, I wonder if she does feel bad for Tyrion. But even the Cersei line when she brings up,
"I will hurt you for this. A day will come when you think you are safe and happy, and your joy will turn to ashes in your mouth, and you will know the debt is paid."
She repeats what Tyrion said to her, and she also talked about how he wanted Joffrey on the front lines. Basically, like we were just saying, it's true, but it was for the wrong reason. She paints it as he wanted Joffrey on the front lines to get him killed, when it's kind of the idea was to have morale for the troops. And when we see in Blackwater, once Joffrey left, how the troops' morale kind of dipped down. So it's just messing things up to fit your narrative.
yeah.
Pretty smart by Cersei, because everyone's getting their information from her.
Yeah, and Jaime in this scene with Tywin, when he calls the trial a farce, that this is just a show being put on for the people of Westeros, for the citizens of King's Landing. But Jaime makes Tywin an offer that he can't refuse. He says, if you spare Tyrion's life, then I'll leave the King's Guard and take my place as your heir.
I'll leave the King's Guard. I'll take my place as your son and heir if you let Tyrion live.
Done.
He'd even finish talking, and Tywin's like, done.
Tywin hit him with the quick done.
Yeah.
And Jaime's face, he was shocked. He had all these things that he was going to bring up, all these arguments.
He's probably thinking to himself, oh, it took him this long to come at me with this deal. This is what I fucking wanted the whole time.
Right, maybe this was the long con with Tywin. I don't know if he's that clever.
What he always wanted, so if it means sending Tyrion to the Night's Watch, it's kind of killing two birds with one stone. He's basically dead anyway.
And I wonder, too, if they would have allowed him to even get that far, or if they would have sent another cat's paw assassin to kill him. But that's another interesting thing I would have liked to have seen. Tyrion reunited with Jon Snow, maybe taking the place of Maester Aemon, a learned man who can not necessarily help them fight, but help them plan tactics and strategies. But Jaime even tells Tywin, I think maybe it's the first time he ever told him that the Mad King, the last command that he gave Jaime was to bring him Tywin's head. And maybe even Tywin is kind of thrown back by that a bit. What's heartbreaking about this exchange between Jaime and Tyrion is that Tyrion always has this larger-than-life persona about him, that he looms so large over every character in the show. He's just so outgoing. His personality he's so charismatic. He's so clever. But here he finally looks and sounds like the helpless younger brother, and that Jaime is in the position to help him now, rather than the other way around. And it's heartbreaking how defeated he sounds and looks.
When you think of the situation that's happening right now, it's your father and your sister blaming you, falsely blaming you for killing your nephew, and there's nothing you can do to convince anyone otherwise. And the only people that probably believe him are, well, I'm sure people do believe him, but openly and will have his back, is pretty much just Jaime. And he's alone. He has nobody, and he knows he's helpless at this point.
And Jaime tells him of the deal, and at first Tyrion is skeptical because he says Ned Stark was promised the same deal, but that was Joffrey, this is Tywin. And it does make me wonder if Tywin was going to let Tyrion live, because once he has Jaime in Casterly Rock, he can kind of just do whatever he wants. But Tyrion trusts Jaime in this moment until they bring the final witness, and this was a bad move by Tywin. This is probably what signed his death warrant. And we talked about how all the testimony was rooted in truth. This is the real relationship he had, the one person that he actually trusted. She's the one making fabrications. She's the one who's actually lying, and it's such a bitter irony. And that's what finally breaks Tyrion.
Objection.
To Shay?
Yeah, you can't just bring in like a star witness out of nowhere.
That's a trump card.
Don't you have to let the other side know, like, what's going on, right?
Well, I mean, this trial is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is an episode of Judge Judy.
Yeah. It's kangaroo court.
It really is, yeah.
I feel like it's more of a Cersei kind of one last dig at Tyrion, because the case is won. You don't really need this. You don't really need Shay to be brought out.
That final
this
dagger
is like,
by Ollie.
It's like, yeah, we got you, but this is going to fucking destroy you emotionally now.
It's like
not only am I going to kill you, you're going to suffer before as well.
It's the one final kick to Sonny's dead body after they just machine gunned him. So, fuck you. The fact that is she really that heartbroken by what Tyrion had to do that she's willing to go this far? Or did they threaten her?
Oh, Cersei definitely threatened her.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the only time we do hear actual lies. So I guess it is a more, concrete evidence, if you will, quote unquote, to the people of King's Landing and to the people who aren't in the loop like Cersei and Tywin, who kind of know what's going on. This is more of like, oh, you hear her? She said, the witness, that Tyrion, Sansa plotted against Joffrey.
Yeah, it's the first time a witness actually says that.
Yeah.
She's just sensationalizing everything around this trial and the murder.
They knew they were going to find him guilty, but they needed something to justify it to everyone else, I guess.
And it is very believable because Shay has been with Tyrion for years now. She's always by his side, and she was Sansa's handmaiden. And then it's just not a good look, Sansa leaving the city.
It's almost as if the person who masterminded this plan knew that it wouldn't look good for him.
And then, I wonder who that was. I'm not really sure.
Dantos.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
And when he pleads with Shay, that final word, the final exchange that they have, when he says, Shay, don't. And when she turns to him, I said this for a good, year.
I am a whore. Remember?
I always used to say this line to people after I would betray them, when I would betray their trust. I would look at them and be like, I'm your whore. Remember? I don't know why. I would just randomly say it to people because the delivery is so bad.
It's one of these things where I kind of felt bad because the whole sequence is pretty rough. But then Peter Dinklage delivers one of the most iconic, well-acted scenes of the whole show. Has to follow that up.
Top 5 speech?
Probably. I don't know.
Right?
Yeah, and,
You didn't want to say it. I'll say it.
But the contrast between that and Shay is kind of...
Yeah,
apparent, to say the least.
It's like, here's the best actor on the show, here's the worst.
I'm guilty of a far more monstrous crime. I'm guilty of being a dwarf.
You're not on trial for being a dwarf.
Oh, yes I am. I've been on trial for that my entire life.
When you talk about the emotional dexterity that Peter Dinklage needed to have to deliver these lines as powerfully as he does, and I think too it's rooted in truth, and it goes for the scene between him and Oberyn as well, that he's been very open about talking about how being a dwarf has affected him in his life, the amount of bullying that he went through, the way that people look at him as something that's different because of the way that he was born. He kind of describes that here, where he's talking about how his father, his sister, his brother, society looks on him as a monster. And it points to the development that he's going through in the novels right now, where he's starting to embrace this false persona of being a monster, being filled with hatred and vengeance. And he's saying that, I wish I could be that person. And we know that's not going to satisfy him, but it's tragic.
It's so believable, like you said. It's really very candid. It's something that, it's just for that one moment, he doesn't care about anything. He knows he's dead. He knows nothing he can do convince them otherwise, so he just lets it all loose right now, and it's pretty perfect.
It is so well acted, and I say Peter Dinklage is the best actor on the show for me, and this just solidified it. It's the scene that didn't win him an Emmy.
They were probably so pumped once Breaking Bad ended.
Thank God.
Yeah.
But then he makes the decision to demand a trial by combat, and the way that he delivers it, too, when he's talking about, I'll get no justice here, so I'll let the gods decide my fate.
I demand a trial by combat.
And the look on everybody's face, like, can he do that? Is that in the rules of Westeros?
Right here, yep. Fine
Yeah.
print. It's like his go-to. You know, it's like his catchphrase now.
Right, and
He
even
just demand trial by combats.
you see Jaime's shocked face, too, when he begins to go off.
It's like, oh yeah, he knows I only have one hand, right?
I ain't fighting this motherfucker.
I can picture Bronn hearing the news like, he did what?
He's,
Calm. This motherfucker.
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, I could do it. And then they realize it's the mountain, and he's like,
Well, Tyrion's
"Ooh."
probably thinking in the back of his head, I'm going to pick the mountain. That's who I'm going to get to fight for me. And
It doesn't work like that. I have to agree.
you get all the looks on all the characters' faces. You see Cersei, who's thinking in the back of her head, okay, yeah, I'm ready for this. And Oberyn has a great reaction as well. I think even in this moment, he's thinking this is a way for him to not exact revenge on the Lannisters, but to spite them by siding with Tyrion in his trial by combat, because he probably believes whoever they put in front of him, he can defeat easily. It just makes it even sweeter when he discovers that it's going to be the mountain. That final stare down between him and Tywin. It's epic.
Yeah, it is great. And I always wish, and we'll talk about it because they share a scene that talks about this later on in the season, but I kind of wish Jaime still had his right hand here.
Oh, yeah.
Because then it would be a clear cut, you know, you would have Tyrion and Jaime versus Tywin and Cersei. And that would have been fucking awesome. Or even just pick them anyway. And it kind of puts them in that, like, it's kind of like calling their bluff. All right, I'll pick Jaime with one hand against the mountain.
Yeah.
What are you going to do, Tywin, to your fucking heir and Cersei to your lover?
That would have been the better play.
I should have wrote it.
You maybe, write a letter to George. Not even D&D. Holy shit.
I should have pitched that to him.
Thunk George.
We did just see him, so
Yeah,
maybe.
we did. All right, so what do you give this episode out of 10?
Up until like the last part, it wasn't really that interesting. It was a fun little fight sequence, but the trial's so good. I always love it, and I'd probably give like a 9.6.
Yeah, I was going to say 9.5. I think this very well could have been the weakest episode up until the trial.
Yeah, that's what I was going to think too, but I always love the trial. It's something I always look back, especially when I think about Tyrion and Peter Dinklage's performance. This is one of the first things I remember. Just for that alone, a little boost.
Top 3 Thanksgiving foods?
Mashed potatoes, stuffing. That's people eat that, right?
I like stuff.
Pretty much anything besides turkey. It's all about the size.
You can't eat the turkey.
Turkey's overrated. No, you eat the turkey. You don't want to.
Well, I have a close personal friend who's a turkey, so.
Is that a new character?
He's a new character, yeah. We're cooking him up.
All right.
Not that way. I mean, we're... Hey guys, thank you for watching this video, and before we go, I want to quickly thank our Patreon supporters. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to grow and evolve as a channel, so thank you for your generous pledges. If you are interested in supporting our channel through Patreon, visit www.patreon.com/nerdsoup, and you can see the different rewards we offer to our Patreon supporters. T-shirts, mugs, stickers, access to our behind-the-scenes video, and more. Thanks again for watching this video, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Or dislike, don't share, and unsubscribe. It's a binary world, folks.